All right, everyone, come on in. Come on in, come on in. I think we're ready to get started. Okay, really good. I want to welcome everyone. It is a great pleasure to welcome you to the inaugural XPRIZE Healthspan Team Summit. So again, this is an afternoon event that we're holding in conjunction with Longevity Medicine and also our partners at Aging Research and Drug Discovery. And it is a very important event, and I'm really happy you're all here, is that we stand at the forefront of one of the most exciting and rapidly evolving fields in biomedical science. The quest to understand and positively influence the aging process has never been more crucial. Our global populations are aging and at unprecedented rates, and our work has the potential to impact the lives of individuals and societies, to redefine what it means to age with health and in an extended period of vitality. The summit today provides a unique opportunity for us to share knowledge, to foster new collaborations, and to spark the innovative ideas that will shape the future of aging research. I encourage you all to engage in lively conversation and discussions, both of you, those of you who are attending in person at the live summit, and we have a number of our teams and folks interested both in and around the prize and medicine, longevity medicine and aging research who are attending online. So I invite you to challenge our assumptions. I also invite you to forge new partnerships that can accelerate progress in this vital field. And I want you to remember that our collective efforts have the power to make healthy aging possible for all. And so let us embrace this opportunity to learn from each other and to work towards a future where healthy aging is made a reality. And I want to thank in particular your dedication for this cause, but also again, our ARDD organizers. So to Morton, to Daniela, Evelyn, and also Alex. So the folks that are here really helping to make this possible, who have worked with us to put on this event, and to our incredible donors, sponsors, advisors, and speakers in this afternoon session. All right, and so now let's jump into it. We're going to talk a little bit more about the prize and what you have to look forward to. So who here, before coming into this, has heard about XPRIZE? Okay, good. So a fair number, but we have a lot more to talk about. So we're going to talk about what XPRIZE is, what this prize is, and where we're going. So first, just with a few introductions to the idea. So XPRIZE, this is, it's 30 years. This is actually our 30th anniversary of XPRIZE, and in 30 years, we've run 30 prizes. So where XPRIZE started was with a dream and with our founder, Dr. Peter Diamandis, who we'll hear from in a short video clip later. But it started in space with the Ansari XPRIZE. And so this was a groundbreaking competition that significantly impacted the field of private spaceflight. So it started as a $10 million competition. It was announced in 1996. By Dr. Peter Diamandis, and the prize was awarded to the first non-governmental organization to launch a reusable manned spacecraft into space twice within 2 weeks, and it had to carry 3 people to an altitude of 100 kilometers. And they had to return safely to Earth. And so again, a couple of highlights there. The goal was not to go to the moon. It was to create a pathway that did not exist previously. It was to inspire and to create hope for what could be in the future. And so this was a $10 million prize, but the teams that competed actually ended up spending roughly $100 million in order to reach that goal, to create a manned spacecraft. But it was enough to inspire and get people to compete. And eventually the competition was won in 2004 by Scaled Composites, a team led by aerospace engineer and designer Bert Rattan. Their spacecraft, Spaceship One, successfully completed the prize, and more important, it actually helped launch what is now known as a privatized space industry. So again, it was groundbreaking because it demonstrated the power of incentivized prizes to drive rapid innovations and opened up space exploration to private enterprise and fundamentally changed the landscape of space technology and development. And so I emphasize this prize because this is the model and a concept that we're now looking and using in many other areas. So within XPRIZE, again, as I've mentioned, this is the 30th anniversary. This is a major hallmark for the foundation, which is a nonprofit foundation who's launched 30 prizes in 30 years. It began with space, but has expanded exponentially since then. And it creates a really unique ecosystem for investments and also to accelerate innovations and technology. Out of these prizes, there have been several that have been launched in health. So some of these have been around digital sensing, others have born out of the pandemic, and we now stand at the precipice of a very new prize, and very new one also for XPRIZE in its history. And this is the Healthspan Prize, which of course is actually $111 million total, that there's actually two prizes within one. And we're going to talk about both of them today. So there's the $101 million Healthspan Prize and the $10 million FSHD bonus prize. And this prize would not be possible if it was not for Peter Diamandis and his vision. A number of people who are the early generators of this idea, including Aubrey de Grey. I think this started possibly 10 years ago, but then wasn't really brought into fruition until more recently. Sergey Young, one of our earliest donors, actually funded the prize concept for this several years ago. And they worked on this idea also with Steve Horvath to reframe how would you run a prize that could target aging. And then since then, we've now brought on multiple donors and sponsors. We have our two co-title sponsors, Hevolution and Chip Wilson with Solve FSHD. We'll hear brief video clips from both coming up very soon. Again, Peter Diamandis, our founder. And then we have a number of individual donors and sponsors, many of whom are with us today. So would like to recognize a few of our donors. If our donors are here, again, please feel free to stand up or be recognized. We would not be here without you. Cass Bordier. We have if you're here, Cass. Some are in person, some are not. Again, we have Charlie and Lori Epstein, who I believe may be here or might be here later. Daniel Krizik may be here. Chris Uwinga, I know you're sitting right up front. Thank you, Chris. Christian Peniff, and many others. So again, many of these names are not here live, but they are joining us virtually. And again, a number of, what's that? There's exactly. They're in the tent. Okay, hello. We're really glad you're all here. Thank you so much. If you'd like to come inside, we do have seats available for you. And again, really, we would not be here without these incredible people. Again, our two co-title sponsors and the incredible individuals who, without their support and their kindness and generosity, this would not be possible. Right, so several years in the making. I joined XPRIZE about a year ago. I got a cold call while sitting in my lab where I'd been working on how do you develop testing frameworks for therapeutics and gerotherapeutics. Had worked with Nir Barzilai and many others trying to create the TAME trial. Had worked with George and many others, and Steve Krzyzewski was my mentor, working on the Geroscience Translational Trials Network. And how do you test therapeutics? And so this has always been my research question, my scientific question, and then bringing this into XPRIZE. When they'd done the fundraising for this prize, and we were still left with this question, is if a therapeutic could improve health span, how would we know? And so to answer this question, we formed small committees. And so our first small committee had a very big task, and that was to get us to launch. Our public launch was in November of 2023, and this was led by major efforts between Dr. Patrick Maxwell, Steve Ostad, who we'll hear from later. Hello, Steve, thank you. Dr. Tom Rando, and also Luigi Ferrucci, who could not be here today. But again, we had the really difficult task of figuring out how would you measure it, how could you test this, and what would it look like for clinical trials. And we went to launch, and we also had on this endpoints committee Dr. Peter Diamandis and Dr. Mehmood Khan from Hevolution, and we made really great progress. Since the launch, we've expanded our advisory board as we realized that this was a bigger question than any one individual or any one small panel. What we needed was the advice and insights from a number of scientists, from a number of CEOs, founders, and thought leaders within the field. And so over the last 6 to 9 months, is that I've worked really closely with each of the people on this list. We'll hear from many of them today that have led work groups around how do you measure each of these different domains, muscle, cognitive, and immune function? How do you set up trials? How do we measure it? What data infrastructures do we need in place? And so we're here today to be able to share some of that with you. And so again, to my advisors, to my endpoints committees, and to the supporters around us, thank you. This prize would not be here without your support. And I should also thank our teams, because during this time, we've had something called a public comment, where we asked each of our teams, we asked people within our partnered ecosystems, people from around the world, how should we do this? What do we put in place? And we've taken your advice and we've taken your thoughts, and we've tried to shape this into a prize that will help us advance the field forward together. And so again, with that, I thank you all so very much, and it is my great pleasure to stand at the helm and really be of service to the field. And so with that, we're going to introduce a couple of slides from our sponsors, beginning with our, unfortunately, Dr. Mehmood Khan at the very last minute was unable to make his trip. We're very sad to miss him, but in his place, we'll share with you a little bit about the Hevolution Foundation and their mission.
From first flight to space flight, and first light to, well, first light. Ours is a story of discovery, of exploration, and making the impossible real. Today we face an age-old problem, aging itself. We're all living longer. More than 1 billion of us are over 60 right now, with that set to double by 2050. But we are spending more of those years sicker. Aging is the underlying cause of most chronic disease, but it's something we can solve together, and we are already well on our way to doing it. We are making incredible breakthroughs to give us all more healthy years, so we can all spend more time with the ones we love and contribute to our world for longer. At Hevolution, we are convening, collaborating, and catalyzing to bring about a healthier aging future for all. Come join the Hevolution.
Okay, great. So that is a note, again, from our co-title sponsor, Hevolution. Mehmood Khan, unfortunately, was not with us. And is this, do we have sound to go with this? Okay. Hopefully this works. So again, Peter Diamandis is our founder and was unavailable this week. And so he recorded a message.
Hi everybody, Peter Diamandis here. I serve as the founder and chairman of the XPRIZE Foundation. I want to welcome all of you to XPRIZE Healthspan's first team summit, generously hosted at the 11th Aging Research and Drug Discovery Meeting. You know, this is a special year for us. It's our 30th anniversary, and over the last 30 years, we have launched 30 XPRIZes with over $500 million, a little bit more than that, of cumulative prize purses, delivering 30x on every dollar of prize purse out there, focusing on what we consider the most important challenges for society, including how do we handle a rapidly aging population? The mission of XPRIZE Healthspan is to revolutionize the way we approach human aging, to focus on closing the gap between life and health expectancy. This 7-year, $101 million global competition will catalyze the development of therapeutic treatments that restore muscle, cognition, and immune function by a minimum of 10 years with a goal of 20 years, perhaps more. We want to make healthy aging possible for everyone. We have so many people to thank for ongoing support. I want to include a few of our sponsors and those who are there with us today. In particular, Cass Bordier, Chris Huinga, Christian Peniff, and Charlie and Lori Epstein. In addition, of course, our two co-title sponsors, Dr. Mehmood Khan, the CEO of Hevolution, and Chip Wilson, the head of Solve FSHD. Hevolution, if you don't know already, is a visionary leader that stands at the forefront of catalyzing and convening the healthy longevity field, bringing together future and current leaders so that we can thrive. Solve FSHD is catalyzing the innovation to find a cure for FSHD, a type of muscular dystrophy. Today, as we have increasing global grand challenges, there's more urgency than ever to bring together the smartest people on the planet and to focus them using exponential technologies on solving the world's biggest problems. to ensure that we can benefit society for everyone. The future is still ours to create. Join us as we continue to architect a future of equitable abundance and increased health span. Please note that primary registration is now open for the $101 million XPRIZE Healthspan Global Competition, as well as for the $10 million FSHD bonus prize. If you have a team, please register today at xprize.org/healthspan. You can also find more information there. If you'd like to qualify for our first $10 million of prize distributions, please submit before December 20th of 2024. It's now my pleasure to pass the mic to a dear friend, the head of Solve FSHD, one of our co-title sponsors, Chip Wilson.
As one of the XPRIZE's co-title sponsors, I'd like to extend a warm welcome to Healthspan's Team Summit members. In 2022, I invested $100 million into vascular scapular muscular dystrophy, commonly known as FSHD. And we have a goal to solve muscular dystrophy by December 31st, 2027. So FSHD affects about 1 million people worldwide, and it causes the progressive deterioration or loss of skeletal muscle. Currently, there is no cure. I was inspired to back Peter Diamandis in the XPRIZE contest because I believe a well-run contest like this can bring out the best and brightest minds of the world. I love competition, and I think scientists do too. And so we've set up the $101 million XPRIZE Healthspan Global Competition, and I am offering another $10 million as a bonus prize to solve FSHD. So, how to qualify for an FSHD bonus prize? Well, the best team must demonstrate a substantial improvement in functional muscle. This improvement should be based on fat infiltration in muscle or a change in the relevant FSHD biomarker. There must be a corresponding improvement in muscle function through a therapeutic treatment lasting 1 year or less. This applies to individuals with genetically confirmed FSHD. So a big question is can XPRIZE Healthspan competitors compete in both the competition and the bonus prize? Yes, teams can compete in both the XPRIZE Healthspan and the FSHD bonus prize, or both. We invite teams competing in the XPRIZE Healthspan to transfer to the FSHD bonus prize during the competition for no additional fee. So what is the impact of the competition? Well, groundbreaking competitions like this will inspire breakthrough ideas to accelerate the much-needed innovation and give hope to a future where FSHD no longer defines the terms of anyone's life. Join us as we work together not only to revolutionize, but to solve FSHD. Register a team today at xprize.org/healthspan. Thank you very much.
Okay.
As one of the
There we go. All right, so again, those were messages from our XPRIZE founder. Also, Hevolution and Solve FSHD are two co-title sponsors. And so now we're going to go in and give a little prize overview. And Jessica is...
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jessica Yoon. I'm the prize manager for XPRIZE Healthspan. I'd also like to quickly state my gratitude and appreciation to our co-title sponsors, Hevolution and Solve FSHD, to Cass, Chris, Daniel, Lori, Charlie, and Christian, who we're delighted are here with us today, representing our amazing group of prize sponsors. All of our prize partners that are collaborating with us in support of this audacious prize, and the speakers and presenters who've taken time out of their incredibly busy schedules to all join us here at this Team Summit. And of course, to all of our competing teams, many whose representatives are in the audience today or watching through the live stream. Finally, I'd like to thank ARDD and the ARDD Organizing Committee who collaborated with us today for many months to get to this momentous day. Thank you for organizing such a fantastic event here in beautiful Copenhagen. One quick housekeeping note before I introduce our session speakers. So as the agenda is tight, we will hold on audience questions until the end of this entire session and after all speakers have presented. But if we run out of time, which we likely may, we will have to move on in the agenda, but we encourage those with remaining questions to connect with each of the speakers individually or connect with the XPRIZE team. Throughout this week, we will have our exhibitor booth and the office hours, which we will make detailed announcements later on today. So now, without further ado, it is my great pleasure as chair of this prize overview session to introduce our speakers. So first up, we have Dr. Jamie Justice, Executive Director of XPRIZE. Thank you, and adjunct professor at the Wake Forest University School of Medicine. Our next presenter will be Dr. Nicholas Schork, Deputy Director and Distinguished Professor of Quantitative Medicine at the Translational Genomics Research Institute. And finally, Dr. Eva Chin, Executive Director of Solve FSHD. So, okay, we'll start with Dr. Justice's presentation, where she'll provide a summary overview of XPRIZE Healthspan and discuss its competition guidelines.
Oh, great. So you're not getting rid of me yet. So no, we're actually going to get into some of the science. So again, the first purpose today is just for me to give you an overview of what it is we're asking our teams to do. So again, starting with why an XPRIZE on Healthspan. So again, it should be obvious to everyone who's attending this meeting, but our global population is aging. And this really should be a cause for celebration. But innovative solutions are needed to address the age-related health declines, and we need these solutions urgently. And we do know, you've already seen some really excellent talks on this morning, and you'll continue to see these throughout the meeting. But we know that this biology can be targeted by therapeutics, that at least in animal models, this has been shown to extend lifespan and also health span. And we're now at a precipice where many of these are now being trying to translate these into clinical trials in humans. Yet there exists a very large translational gap. And so these promising therapeutics are being developed. They're being tested in the lab, but having the rollout or being able to test these at large in people is being halted or at least slowed by poor public perception, poor alignment and testing guidelines between those who are actually working in the field. Also, unclear regulatory pathways that I believe Nir and others have already alluded to today that are necessary. And so each of these are barriers to clinical translation that we're proceeding and we're making progress. But we do need an organizing force to really get us to work together in a common direction. And so the mission of XPRIZE Healthspan is to provide proof of principle that biologic aging is a target for therapeutic development, not just in lab animals, but in people. Next, we're looking to create a global research network. And so again, there are already some initiatives like this being started, but to do something really at a global scale. And we need this in health span and aging research. We need to align labs, companies, and researchers to do something rather unprecedented. Rather than testing one drug at a time and one disease condition at a time, is how do we actually work together in a meaningful way? Next, we want to stimulate important investments in longevity, biology of aging, and biotechs associated with this. And so this, again, is really important. And remember I mentioned in the beginning space prize, there was a $10 million prize that catalyzed $100 million of investment per team. We're asking for the same thing here, as this is a much larger prize that teams are going to go after, but there still is a cause for really great investment. And we need funders and investors to get involved and to get active and really get in and meet these teams and help them achieve the goal of trying to do the research and development necessary in order to lead these trials to win this prize and ultimately create a field that will benefit all of us. Next, this is a great opportunity for scientists to come together and actually convene and develop methodologies for measuring health span in early stage trials. This is absolutely necessary to progress. And this is a chance for us to do that using the prize as the stimulus. And then finally, as was mentioned, this is also a great opportunity to build public awareness and new therapeutic options for persons who are aging with FSHD. And so now a bit of the competition overview. Peter already alluded to this in his video, but we're asking a winning team They have to demonstrate that their therapeutic treatment restores muscle, cognitive, and immune function in older persons. Their therapeutic treatment must take 1 year or less. And the awarding of the prize is indexed against the magnitude of improvement. And we're basing this on the number of years that can be offset. And so can your therapeutic improvement, do you see a benefit that can offset expected 10 years of decline, 15, or 20? And so we have funded amounts next to each one of those that have to be exceeded. And again, we are awarding the team that has the greatest success. You notice that the prize amounts only go up to 81, not 101, and that's because we actually have 2 milestone points. The 7-year prize is awfully long. And so we need to develop, again, an earlier pipeline so that we can get teams through this process. And the first is a qualifying submission. So we've just opened for primary registration. Again, we opened that at the end of July, so we're still in officially our first month of being open for primary registration. We're asking your teams to submit their qualifying submissions by the end of this year, December 20th. And those will be judged early next winter. And we'll be awarding Milestone 1 for both the Healthspan Prize and the FSHD Prize. Those teams will then go on to compete in a semifinal stage. Those who are qualified go on to compete in a semifinal stage for these small early stage proof of concept studies for another Milestone Prize that will be awarded in 2026. And finally, the finals, which will begin 2026. And these are those 1-year clinical trials for 10 of our top finalist teams. So again, just putting these into years, we are right here at the very beginning of a long journey together. We have opened for our qualifying submissions, judging for Milestone 1 in 2025, judging for Milestone 2, and this is for our start of the finals in 2026. Teams have a period of years to conduct their trials, at the end, close out, and judging. So it's a long process, and we invite you all to join us at every step of the way. And so far, we have a lot of teams that are interested in this. So these are numbers today. This is just in the last few months of pre-registration and teams' interest. 411 teams have signaled their intent to compete in XPRIZE Healthspan or have already fully registered. These teams are coming from 53 countries across 6 continents. We are just missing Antarctica. So again, I don't expect a team from Antarctica, but it would be great if we could get one. But you can see this is truly a global competition, and there's interest coming from everywhere. Even just the information that we're getting at this stage of the competition alone is incredibly valuable to see the progress in the field and where the interests lie. And now, how do you win? Okay, so we'll go through a little bit. Again, this is going to be a flyby. The first thing that teams will encounter is Milestone 1, is that we right now have an open call for qualifying submissions. And so what this is, it's roughly it's a research and development phase. It's a pen and paper submission. And it's the first formal opportunity for teams to demonstrate their ability to compete in the competition. So teams are required to turn in a packet of information to us. This will be an online submission where we want a summary of what they're going to do. They have to describe their team. They have to talk about the environment in their clinical centers. And they provide us a technical application, and they have to show us a study timeline. Can you actually get regulatory approval and get in the field fast enough to be considered for this prize? And of course, you also want to think about scalability and accessibility of your therapeutic. Is it only available for one person? Or is it something that actually might have the potential to help many? Okay, so that's the first stage. This will be judged. Again, it's due December 20th, so we're just at the beginning. So if you're a team or contemplating this, there's still plenty of time. We're also encouraging teams to work together. Use this as an opportunity to find new collaborations. If you think you have something that might work in one avenue, again, find testing partners. Find people to help you translate this. All right, so once we make these determinations, we're going to pick top 40 teams. More teams can compete than just the top 40. But going into the semifinals, the semifinalists actually have to conduct an early stage clinical trial. And so this is what we call a proof of concept trial. They have to show, is it pockable? Essentially, is it feasible? So these are typically very short trials. We're looking at maybe 30, 60 days and a very small number of people. They're ideally relatively inexpensive, but for our semifinals purpose, these are really critical because it's like a run-in for the primary competition. Do you have a feasible team? Do you have a therapeutic? Can you get regulatory approval? Do you have a clinical center that you can actually do some testing in with human subjects? And so they have 1 year to do this. So it's a very condensed timeline to actually show our judges that you're in the field and capable of actually advancing, or finding ways to screen down and show us what combination of therapeutics you might try to approach for the finals itself. It's very ambitious and a very difficult goal for those that have done clinical testing. And again, here, safety is our top concern. These are too small to actually really demonstrate safety within 5 to 20 people. We know that. But our judges at this stage will also be looking at, can you at least get IRB approvals? Do you have data and safety monitoring plans for when you go into a finals? And do you have sort of a risk minimizing plan when you go forward? So again, these are really critical components. So as Tom Rando and others have already shown us today, there are always trade-offs and cost benefits. And so we're not asking that this has to be perfectly safe. We're saying that, are you using a balanced approach to monitoring? And so this is a really important component at each step. And so now, assuming you make it and you're one of our top 10 finalists, out of the 411, we're hoping to get 500 teams at least by the end of the year, and I think we will make our goal. If you make it to being the top 10, these are our finalists. Our finalists are awarded each $1 million at the beginning, and that we're going to host a lot of different meetings and summits to help you find investors and funders as needed. But assuming you make it here and you're able to advance into the finals, you're going to have to run 1-year clinical studies. And this is just, again, the briefest snapshot of what this looks like. You're going to be running studies in middle-aged and older adults who are free of major life-threatening diseases or disabilities. This doesn't mean perfectly healthy. It means generalizable, but perhaps not with terminal cancer. Okay, so again, we're being fairly realistic and trying to allow as much leeway to our teams as possible. The intervention, of course, is at the team's discretion. A control group is required, and that we'll talk to individual teams as we go down this route about what that control group looks like. Outcomes, of course, improvement in muscle, cognitive, and immune function. I'll go into that in just a moment. And the time, these are 1-year trials. And here we also have a snapshot of what those trials will look like. You heard a talk earlier today by Laura Getz. Laura's our medical deputy, and she is a huge gift to our team. After this, we're also going to hear from Nick Shork, who's going to talk about the design a little bit more. One of the important things that we found is that it's really important to get an established baseline and to do what we're thinking of as more of a single crossover design. So we're looking at within-person improvements. And in order to get that within-person improvement, we need multiple baseline measures. And then we can do some kind of a randomization to treatment or control or standard of care, or whatever that might look like depending on your therapeutic and design. And then you have an intervention period, and again, we're looking at the after effect, which is really multiple follow-up measures. And so we're going to have nice longitudinal data to base these individual responses. And so here's a hypothetical figure of what this might look like. So if I'm looking at, let's say this is VO2 max. We're going to start with the baseline period, have multiple measures. We can then do some, again, it's more like a single crossover. They're going to then go on their treatment, and we have follow-up measures. And then hopefully, if you have a therapeutic or something that improves VO2 max, you might see a very robust response. Nick will talk more about this, but internally, what XPRIZE does is we'll set the thresholding for what a 10-year response would look like, or a 20-year response would look like. And we're basing this on longitudinal referent data. And again, those are things that XPRIZE will do within a centralized data coordinating center. What the teams need to do is set up the testing framework and then submit that data. And we're looking at these not just for one measure, but multiple. So for muscle, endurance capacity, lower body power and muscle mass. Cognition are computerized testing batteries. And immune function, this has definitely been the biggest challenge. George is going to talk about the work group, is looking at different subsets of immune cell response, immune cell subsets, and inflammatory status. I'm going to just give you a flyby. If you want this detailed information, each of our speakers and work groups are going to talk about the measures within each component. You can also find this in the guidelines. We have tables just like this set up that show our recommended measures and acceptable measures. So this is if the team cannot do this gold standard, here are secondary options that are at least tightly correlated with this. The optimal measure is something that has maybe greater sensitivity to detect changes over time, or might be a better measure, but may require resources that not all teams would have. But what's really important is that we're looking at summary scores for each of these. So if we're having multiple, at least 3 measures for muscle, is that we're looking at you have to exceed threshold for improvement, at least 2 out of 3 of each. Very similar for cognition. Again, we're going to have a speaker to talk about this in the work group decisions, but we're looking at a computerized testing battery. For many of these computerized testing batteries, there already is a composite score that looks globally at things that matter with aging. But there is also the option to look at percent improvement in some of the subdomains. And it's also very important that this is the start of a 7-year prize. There may be new determinations and better tests that come out, and that we're staying flexible to that, and we'll announce it to the teams as we go. But this at least gives us a starting place, and also a starting place for our teams to begin writing their protocols. Very similar to immune function is that immune function has turned into one of the greatest challenges. We could have a prize dedicated entirely to measuring immune function for clinical trials. And I would say can and should have such a prize, is that it's an incredible challenge, but it's a great opportunity for us to really get in and do some work. What we can say is that we're going to be proposing standardized operating procedures for exactly what and how to collect samples. Anything that is measured by an assay, we will run those centrally, and that we can make determinations as we go. So this will be refined as we go into finals, but what we will give people is exactly how to collect and what to collect, and that we will cover the cost and be in charge of actually running centrally any of the immune function measures. And so again, what's really important is that the teams have to go through and actually do the work. But that data gets uploaded to a data coordinating center. So this data will be handled centrally. And I think that that's really important for testing validation, and I think it's also really important for our teams to know, is that in my mind, yes, awarding a team is going to be a great output from this, and that's going to be very exciting. But as a scientist, what I think is the greatest contribution this prize will make is the centralized data that comes out of this, is to look across at least 10 different therapeutic interventions and begin, again, on the same sort of data system and have a centralized system with common protocols to think about what we could actually do with a coordinated and synergized data system. It will be an incredible resource for future discovery for biomarkers and new therapeutics. And so that brings us to a common question that we've had that I want to address it here: intellectual property and team data. Very important. Your IP is your IP. You own it. That will not change. So our teams get this. And I think that's really very, very important, is that they have to hold the appropriate licenses and technologies, methods, and IP. They have to do that in order to be included, right? You can't, as an investigator, I can't take somebody else's drug and test it without their permission. 2, if you get to retain ownership of your IP that you do bring to the competition, as will any proprietary details about your therapeutic remains proprietary. And so what is really important is the data that's generated in pursuit of the prize, any of those things that go to that data coordinating center, they're de-identified, and that we do use those for judging. Anything that used for judging is held by XPRIZE, but the teams retain a copy. So you can use it for publications. You can use it for patents. You can use it for commercialization. You can use it for anything that you want. And so this is very, very important. And we've had so many questions that I wanted to put this up front. Okay, and so now I'm just going to give you just the briefest note about qualifying submissions for FSHD bonus. It's exactly the same as Healthspan, exactly the same time frame. Our teams are going to be submitting this, but it is a separate judging panel because the populations are different. The endpoints are different. And so again, this is qualifying submission on December 20th, very similar format, but describing the therapeutic you have and how it applies to the FSHD bonus. And again, I'm going to leave this to Eva. I don't want to steal the thunder, but there is the FSHD bonus prize has defined outcomes that are important for that disease condition. And so the winning team has to show a 10% reduction in muscle fat fraction, fibrosis, or increased muscle mass using best practice, or an acceptable novel biomarker. And they have to show an improvement in function. So again, it's a really important bonus prize and a couple of features that were already highlighted in that last video. And I want to say again here, teams can register in one or both tracks. So you can do both. And any qualified team who's competing in Healthspan who decides to opt out and participate in the FSHD, totally fine. And there are a lot of reasons you may choose to do that. Maybe you're working on something that really impacts muscle and that you think it has a better chance for that prize. Compete it there. Maybe you have something and you really want a disease indication that might speak to the FDA immediately. Maybe it works for FSHD. So there's a lot of very compelling reasons to do this, so teams can transfer tracks and begin to compete in the FSHD track at no additional registration fee. But it is important to know that the judging panel for those are completely independent of one another. And so with that, I just want to thank you all so much for your attention. This was the flyby version of what we're going to do for the next 7 years. I expect you have lots of questions. We're here to answer them. You can find more at our website. And I want to thank our incredible, incredible team. So if my operations team could stand up just for a moment. So I have, again, Jessica Yoon is our prize manager. I have Lauren Pierpoint, who is our technical lead. Annika Anderson is our newest Teams Relations Manager, so if you're a team, you're going to get to know her really well. I have our medical deputy is Laura Getz, standing in the back, and we have a number of other people who are on support that you might interact with on email that are still in California right now. And of course, Dr. Peter Diamandis is our great champion and supporter and founder of XPRIZE. With that, again, thank you to our two co-title sponsors and everyone else, and we're going to welcome our next speaker. Jess will introduce.